Hello, and welcome back to R&R. If you're new here, that stands for Reading and Renewing. I'm Emily, a sophomore in high school and one of the biggest bookworms you'll meet for a while. I'm sure you've heard of Book Talk, the site of TikTok that's all about books and users reviewing them. Today, I'm going to be discussing Book Talk books and whether they truly deserve the hype surrounding them. Our guest will be Miss Peyton Ivy, who herself is in the 8th grade and loves books just as much as I do, but we will meet her in a few moments.
So jumping into the books, the first book from my list is We Were Liars by E. Lockhart. So this quick summary of this book, there's one private island in the middle of the summer, 4 beach houses on it, and it's about, I believe her name is pronounced Katie or Caddy, and her 3 cousins. There's a huge accident happens one summer and Katie loses her memory, so there's a huge secret going around. She wants to know what happened, but her family won't tell her. Everybody's been instructed not to tell her. I would recommend this book for ages 13 and up because it does deal with some sensitive topics. So I would also check the trigger warning. There's a sequel coming out in May of 2022 called Family of Liars. I'm personally very excited. I enjoyed this book and the way it was written. It was a very different choice stylistically, but I think it was a very good choice that the author made. Moving on to Ugly Love by Colleen Hoover. Girl Tate, the main character, meets Miles, her brother's next-door neighbor in his apartment building while she's moving into his apartment. And she's a nurse and he is a pilot, and they end up having a relationship, but it's not a relationship. I would definitely say this book is ages 15 and up. It also deals with some topics that younger audiences may not be mature enough to handle yet, but it's definitely worth reading. The next book is also by Colleen Hoover. It's called It Ends With Us. So Lily meets Ryle and they end up trying not to date because Lily wants to start her own floral shop. Ryle's a neurosurgeon and has no time, so they try to stay apart. And Lily's also still attached to a boy named Atlas from her childhood and teenage years. And let's just say it's kind of a love triangle. So I would recommend this book ages 14 and up. There is definitely a trigger warning, so please look that up before you go reading this book. The next book, or series of books, they're all by Karen M. McManus. So the first one is called One of Us is Lying. There's 5 students in detention and 1 is dead by the end of detention, and they have to try to figure out who killed him. I would recommend this book ages 13 and up because, again, it does deal with a sensitive topic once you find out what happened to the kid that passed away. There's a sequel to this book called One of Us is Next by the same author, and then there's other books called Two Can Keep a Secret, You'll Be the Death of Me, and The Cousins. Personally, I would recommend The Cousins. That was my favorite out of all of them. The Cousins and One of Us is Lying were my favorites. Finally, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. There's a sequel called Good Girl, Bad Blood, and a 3rd book called As Good as Dead. So in the first book, this girl, Pippa, decides to solve a murder case for her capstone project, but she soon discovers way more information than she needed to know and kind of spirals into actually trying to figure out who killed who. And it's very good. The way it's written, it's very suspenseful. And I would also recommend that for ages 13 and up, just because it's a teeny bit scary, dealing with murder and all that. Those were all the TikTok, Book Talk books that I know of that I've read. Personally, I think they're all worth it to read. They all have really good stories and backgrounds, and the way they're all written, some of them are very different. We Were Liars goes back in time and talks about past summers, and some of it relates to that current summer, and it also talks about past summers and gives hints to what happened. And it's kind of written in not like the present. You think it's the present, but it's not actually the present, and then the ending is shocking. You come to find out that, wow, this stuff already happened, and it's not happening again. I'm trying not to give too much information away. That probably sounds very confusing, so I apologize for that, but it's definitely a good read. And it's only 225 pages. That one's the shortest out of all of those books that I just talked about. So another book, I don't really see this book on TikTok because it's a couple years old, but Little White Lies and the sequel Deadly Little Scandals, both by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. These are my absolute favorite books. I'm into psychological thrillers and mysteries and things like that. Not anything too scary or nerve-wracking, but the basis of these books. So there's this girl, Sawyer Taft. She isn't rich by any means, but when her grandmother shows up at her front door and offers her $500,000 to live with her for the year, she accepts because she wants to find out who her real father is. So the only catch is she must participate in debutante balls and galas, but then she gets roped into this huge mystery and a huge scandal, which then leads on to the second book, which takes place at like a lake house, and it gets even crazier. I would highly, highly recommend these books. I'm still shocked by the ending of the second book, and I really wish there were dozens of other books in that series. Another book or two, they're both by John Green, and I'm certain you've probably heard of these books, but Turtles All the Way Down and The Fault in Our Stars, I would recommend both books. I know they seem very overhyped or talked about very, very often. I'm sure any bookworm you know has read these books, but they're overhyped. They're not overhyped. There's a reason that they're talked about so much. They're excellent books, and the way that John Green writes things and the way he explains things, the metaphors and the similes, and I don't even know what else, but the things that he uses, the vehicles to get the message across to his readers, is absolutely brilliant. Personally, I want to read Looking for Alaska and Paper Towns. They're also both by him, so maybe my next episode I'll update on that if I read those. So other books on my to-be-read list, a lot of these are from TikTok, but these are just ideas of books if you need a little pick-me-up book, or if you need a book to get out of your reading slump. These are books that are highly talked about. So there's Beach Read, The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, Eleanor and Park, Where the Crawdads Sing, People We Meet on Vacation, Today, Tonight, Tomorrow, The Hating Game, The Inheritance Games, November 9th, They Both Die at the End, and The Midnight Library. So those are books that are all on my list. I have a very long list. I'm also reading The Hunger Games right now. That's very off topic, but it's pretty good so far. I was in 40 pages this morning, and now I'm up to page 108, I believe, or somewhere in there. So if you're looking for a good book, if you haven't read The Hunger Games, I would recommend it. Also, the Divergent series by Veronica Roth. Awesome, awesome books. Their series have dystopian feels to them, so if you're into that, those might be something to look into. So this is our guest, Miss Peyton Ivy. Peyton, would you like to say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Peyton. I'm in 8th grade. I like reading and writing.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Okay. And you're also planning on taking journalism next year, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So she was very excited to do this interview because it's like she's in journalism, but not quite
Without being in journalism.
Yes. So I decided to do my topic, my podcast on book talk books specifically and whether they truly deserve the hype that surrounds them. I have a list of a couple. I'm not sure if Peyton has read them or not. If she has, she can give some insight into them. If not, we can just talk about any type of books or popular books right now. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have the list that I sent you?
Yes.
Okay, so have you read any of those books off that list? Actually, let me say. We Were Liars, Ugly Love, It Ends With Us, One of Us is Lying, or any books from that series, and A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, or any of the books from that series. Have you read any of those?
I have not read those, but I know my brother Brody has some.
And do you know if Brody liked those books?
He did. He read them very quickly, I think. And then I think he also got some of the sequels to them.
Okay.
If some of them have sequels.
Do you know, like, a specific one? Like, I think The Cousins might have been one?
Yeah, I think One of Us is Lying, I think he has. And I know he definitely has A Good Girl's Guide to Murder.
Okay. Good to know. So just to get, like, a good understanding, what's, like, your favorite style of,
like writing or style of books, or even if you have like a favorite author?
I don't really like all the fantasy type. Like, I just can't get into like the Harry Potter or Percy Jackson stuff. I like romance kind of like a slow romance. Not anything that's like too rushed, I guess.
Like a slow burn.
Yeah.
That was called, yeah. Okay. So, when you were looking at that list, I'm not sure, did I include the summaries of any of those, or was it just the titles?
Just the titles.
Just the titles, okay.
Angela was with someone else, and it was before they the town was like even there, and so they were still trying to figure out what to call it. So they were gonna call it either Willow Hills or like something Falls, and then they were like Willow Falls.
Yes. Okay, yeah, I do remember that now. Yeah, I do remember reading that book. That was a good book. It was a really good book.
I didn't know I knew all that stuff about it. I didn't know I had that memorized. I was just like, oh, all these facts about this one book that I read like 2 years ago.
Yeah, so that's how I am with some books, like psychological thrillers, like any of them. If I like it, I will like memorize what happens. Sometimes I'll reread them. My 2 favorite books I have yet to reread. I need to do that because I bought them, but... Okay, so what other books did you want to talk about?
There's one that I liked that is very underrated. I had never heard of it before, but when I went into Barnes & Noble, I saw it, and I was like, this seems super interesting. So I bought it, and it was really good. It's called The Length of a String.
Okay. And who is that by?
It's by Alyssa Brent Wiseman.
Okay.
It's a longer book, but I think it's really good. It's about this girl that was adopted, and like her adoptive parents' grandmother or something died, and they were going through all her like grandmother's stuff, and then they found her diary from like World War II time. So the girl like reads it and like kind of applies some of the stuff that she learns into her life.
Okay.
And learns a lot about like her ancestry, I guess you could call it, since it's not really her, like she's not really related to them. But I just thought it was a really interesting book.
Does it have any like historical fiction in it, or is it just a fiction book? 'Cause I know you mentioned World War II.
I think it's historical fiction because you actually get to like read some of the like diary entries.
Okay.
From like, it's not like real diary entries, but like it's diary entries of a girl that like wrote it in World War II time.
So it could be like fiction and historical fiction.
Yeah.
Okay. That'd be an interesting mix. Personally, I don't like historical fiction, but I do know one of my friends loves it, so that'd be a good book I could recommend to her. See, I'm getting all these good recommendations, and then I'm gonna go and have way more books than I already have to be read. So thanks for that. Just kidding.
Yeah, no problem. And then there's another one called Pop Girl, which sounds really stupid. When we were doing the Scholastic bookstore, whatever, it was sitting on a table for like $2, and everyone was like laughing at the title, and I was like, why don't I go over there and see what it's about, because it's only like $2, so I could just buy this and try it out. And I bought it, and it was one of the best books I've ever read.
What's it
It's
about?
It's about a girl who likes singing a lot, and she auditions for like a main part in a song that they're singing, and she gets the part, but she forgets that when they're going to be like performing the song that she'll be in Hawaii, so she can't do it, and she was really upset because that was going to be like streamed on the radio too.
Oh, wow.
So she was really upset about that, and then she met a band that like recorded their songs like at the resort they were staying at in Hawaii, and the vocalist would not show up to like when they were recording their songs. So she said, "Oh, can I like sing for your one song?" And they were like, "Sure." So they recorded this song with her doing the vocals, and they actually got it on the radio, but they did not give her any credit for it. They said the vocalist was actually the lady who was originally in the band, but didn't show up.
So, sounds like she's just trying to be justified?
Yeah, and then she actually finds out her favorite singer is also staying at that resort, and her favorite singer hears the girl on the radio, and somehow her favorite singer finds out that it was her singing, and she was having a concert in Hawaii in like a few days, so she offers for the girl to like do the opening for her at the concert.
Okay. This is fiction, right?
Yes.
Okay. I was just making sure. Okay.
And it's by Talia Storm.
Okay. Pop Girl by Talia Storm. Okay. Got it. Yeah,
the title sounds so stupid.
It actually sounds interesting when you, like, the summary of it. It actually sounds like a good book. Right now, I'm really into psychological thrillers and mysteries. Nothing too scary, because I'm scared of everything. But I'm really into just, like, mysteries and books that mess with your head. It's kind of a bad addiction right now. But, yeah.
I wanted to read some, I know Birdie has some, of course, but every time I ask him if I can, like, read it, he says no.
Oh.
Like, can I read this one book? And he's like, no.
Well,
Like,
maybe.
why? And he's like, because I'm not done reading it. Okay, well, you're not reading it.
Well,
so.
maybe I'll have to text him and tell him to let Peyton borrow one of his books. Which one?
I think it's A Good Girl's Guide to Murder.
I finished the first book, like, back at the beginning of November. It was my second quarter reading book for English, and I finished it, like, 2 days into the quarter, so I read a bunch of other books, but I still use that one. I just finished the second one. It's called Good Girl, Bad Blood. That one was really good, and the third one just came in at the library, so.
Before I conclude this episode, here's some side notes. Yes, I know there are a lot of books about mystery and murder on these lists. I'm scared of everything, so if a book is too scary, I wouldn't read it, and it probably would not be on this list. I'm sure that none of y'all are as addicted to books as much as I am, and I have no control when reading, so I tear through these scrumptious books very quickly and have plenty of other books to talk about. So thank you for listening to this episode, and I hope to see y'all next week.